go with the mic?
I hope that we got our fingers crossed.
Okay. Sean?
I don't have a ton to say because I'm going to be talking at everybody at the meeting a lot because we have to talk about the draft budget, which we recently put together, and we had a lot to say about that.
Oh, shoot.
The other thing that's happening in the environmental update is a conversation about Margaret Avenue Bridge art. We're going to be talking about what we're going to be doing next. And the time is, my message to council is the time is right to have a conversation about whether we go the route of working with the artists to, I believe 2 out of the 3 artists are still interested in collaborating on the project, so we have to pay them a stipend to develop a concept and then make a decision about.
What's the stipend?
It's less than 5, more than 1.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah.
It's in that range per. It might be on the low end of that range. Or if we want VSBA to complete the design of those cast stone panels, concrete cast stones.
Wait, engineer.
Engineer.
VSBA is Venturi Scott Brown Associates. They're the architect designers that were subcontracted by the.
I just didn't hear. I always thought you said.
Directed by the borough to make our bridge pretty. And we just got the final architectural plans in a meeting with them a week ago, and it really does look nice, I have to say.
From VSBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
with the amazing things.
So we've been looking all this time at the bridge in engineer drawings.
Oh.
And now we have the architectural drawings, the elevations and so forth. So we can really see the details that are going into the bridge.
Can we see those? I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have PDF of them. I'll send them around.
I would love to see it too.
Yeah, me too.
So we will have to make a decision about which way we want to go, and I imagine that will funnel into. I'm not proposing we make that decision tonight, unless you really want to. But I would imagine we'd want to funnel through the infrastructure committee one cycle and get back and make a decision with the November workshop about what we're going to do. That's only 3 weeks away. And we're not going to lose any development time between now and then. But we need to make that choice by then. I do believe we need to. There's a crude way to put it, but we need to do something or get off the pot.
Fishing metaphor that could work, Joe.
Right. So, actually, folks have asked, we did get a request to say what's going on with the bridge, is my understanding. I just kind of assumed that council was holding this stuff up, which clearly is not the case, but as a request in the communication stuff, whether it be on Facebook or the kiosk or something, is there a way to update bridge information to folks who don't watch the meeting as well? Which I know you're going to talk about the comp plan, so maybe this is a nice bridge to the comp plan. See what I did there?
Yeah. We've been talking about what sorts of things merit longer conversations and longer efforts to put information out, and it's proportional to their impacts on the community. So something like a bridge being out affecting businesses and commuters, we need to start pushing information out. So I think that we're not quite there yet. I think what we will, as we were talking about the various pieces that are coming together, they are coming in the realm of getting this project done. It's happening soon, but bear with me a little bit. Once the foundation plans and traffic control plans are approved by PennDOT, those resubmissions have been put in, and we're waiting to hear back from them. We're really only a cost estimate away from submitting final design to PennDOT. And it's rare that you submit a set of final design plans and PennDOT goes, yeah, great. They'll usually send some, they'll go through their process, and there'll be some corrections that'll come back, and that's just accepted. But our design team, once we make that submission, which should happen as soon as we get the foundation plans back and the cost estimate squared away for the architectural components and all the cast stone, They want to hold a public meeting, and we have told them we want at least 6 weeks' notice before you do that. So there'll be a meeting here, it'll be run by our bridge project team. They're going to talk about what it's going to look like, how it's choreographed, when it's ideally going to start, how it goes out to bid, who does what the impacts are going to be, what does the traffic control plan look like, what does the pedestrian access plan look like during construction. Pedestrian access will be maintained throughout the construction period. We're doing it in a choreographed kind of movement over the old bridge, existing bridge, and new bridge. So I think that'll be a great way to start. That's ideally a great way to start the conversation. We'll get a lot of deliverables out of that event. A meeting we can record, information we can put on our website. And what I picture is something that's supported by our website as a back end for information about scheduling and expectations and when things are proposed to begin. And it's starting to come into focus. I mean, for the first time now, seeing the bridge, like the architectural drawings of the bridge, and starting to talk about the date that final design will be submitted to PennDOT. As far as our team, me and Matt and Ed and John, people, we're ready. We're starting to think about the bridge project happening and laying the groundwork for that to happen, and it's coming. So,
is this something that you can do a little bridge update on the weekly webpage, where you're not giving a intensive update, but
yeah, I think
this is where we have bridge timeline or something?
Yeah, like the weekly emails, like the little
in the
amuse
flash.
bouche, and
Yes.
we send you back to the website
Yes.
for bigger materials, for longer conversations, and we
Yeah.
can ping people on important events and timelines
Yeah.
through the weekly email. Whether it sits out there every week like a mayor's message or something like that, I don't know. Maybe, probably we'll do it if it warrants it.
Okay. That's great. So I can tell folks to start to look at that. And I'm also happy to, if you want to put my email down, I did forward kind of that draft language and the emails of elected officials outside of Narberth. I sent it to the NBA. I mean, I know we did kind of a call to public action of letting folks know that, we do not have control of this, and to remind other folks that
This lobby powers.
correct. I sent it to the NBA, but no citizens ever contacted, at least me, for that information. So if you want to add to that, to contact, and I'm happy to forward that so folks can, again, help lobbyists. Thanks. Did you want to talk about the conference?
Yes. We can punch ahead if you want.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to cut you off, so let's just kind of let it
You want to do it now, or you want to do it under info items that are after we talk about these other three things?
Oh, you're confident. No, go ahead. Keep starting.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we've met several times internally, and we compile things together. And I like to frame things out. It's short and sweet, to the point. We've been back and forth a few times, and our work product right now is we're thinking about this in terms of budget, what we need to do to get a piece of print media out next year. We're looking at postage and design, and doing at least one edition of the new Borough Newsletter 2.0, getting some feedback on how that runs, and then planning and then looking forward to 2021 to making either more regular, shorter term newsletters to see how it goes, get some feedback on that. We also want some funding so we can do a quick, easy either postcard or fridge magnet. Michelle loved that idea, so
I love
she's
that
on board
idea.
with that too.
Yeah.
That would just be a fixture in person's homes that, we all stick things on our fridges if they're magnetic. Does it work on stainless?
It's in the size.
We have big stains.
Yeah.
Something that would be permanent around the house that would push people back to our resources to get more information about scheduling and government services. And Michelle is also working on in doing that research and estimate, looking at the partnership possibilities of doing a sponsored mailed element that wouldn't cost us anything if it gets some advertising on there. Maybe there's local businesses that want to be on it, and we'll partner with someone to make that happen. But I wanted to pass this around. It's where we are at right now. I watermarked it draft because I think this is something I want to keep talking about internally. 3 copies there. With staff to see how it's going, to see how we want to change and improve things. We took the recommendations you all talked about from we had a written document, right, on SharePoint that had started an FNA that grew out of the kind of the operational, the implementation piece of it, which hasn't changed much since you last saw it. But we developed a mission statement. We looked at our goals. We're going to talk more about what our target audience is and who we're targeting with our different types of communication. And we're looking at the investment side of it because we're into the budget cycle. So we've reiterated some of the things we've already talked about, but we've talked a little more about this welcome packet idea for new residents, and tying that into our UNO and zoning inquiries and commercial permitting processes. We still need to figure out how to identify those zoning inquiries efficiently.
Sean, who added the Narberth Borough info table? That's a good idea.
Yeah, Michelle was thinking that.
That's a good idea. Narberth Borough.
We get asked, like, annually, we get asked, the office gets asked who wants to have a table at Narberth Day, and thinking, like, there's, I can't talk to anybody coming down here on a Saturday, but maybe we can have deliverable materials that somebody can have and it can be distributed at those kind of events. So we just have a governmental presence when we're doing special events, and that lends itself back into this idea of what are we producing, and is it fresh, timely, and legible and accurate. So we don't want to go out there with the same tired set of stuff to distribute. We want to work and make sure that our print deliverables are as up to date as they can be.
Well, and I think just seeing a face from the office of the staff at an event would be welcome too. With the print stuff, and however that works with borrowed time or however you work that in the office. But I think even just that would be really helpful and appreciated. Okay. So this is going to full council for review of presentation.
Going to full council for review because what do you mean?
Well, I think everybody in council probably wants to see it here.
Yeah.
Are you going to update that tonight or next week?
I can do it at the next meeting. Let me put this together, get the draft on it, get some feedback from you all if you have any.
I like the mission statement a lot. What? I really like that. I like the concept of being temporary stewards of public assets and resources. It's really thoughtful and accurate.
You know how I all feel about the mission statement, and I do.
I mean, the mission statement's not clear about everything.
I know.
I really like this one. As soon as people start talking about that stuff, it's so mad.
I know, this is me in my eye,
but no, I mean it's
My
really
favorite.
it's really good.
Rob?
I mean, I think everything we talked about is here. I don't see anything missing. So, I mean, the benchmarks at the end, email.
For the form-based questionnaire.
Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, what's that?
Michelle was thinking we would put something out. SurveyMonkey is a platform that gets used a lot. That's something that's tied to our electronic communications that is a way to get feedback. And I've wanted to do that with other types of business processes. We just haven't been able to evolve to that point. I'd like to hear back from our constituents, like in the permitting field, like how is it working?
Yeah, and that's it. So if we do something like that, like a survey of that sort, is that then a public record and we have like the data from that is a public record, right? I mean, does that pass muster in terms of like how we can preserve that? Is it done through like those kinds of survey money? Like, do they give us the data in a format that we can preserve it?
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah,
I know that's always
pretty
the
much.
Google. And you would
For the plastics,
yeah, you
and
can
then
do
we
Google.
posted all the data, Matt posted it, or all the analytics
Google
on
would
it.
definitely have all that data, but
Yeah.
I didn't know about it.
Yeah, and they're pretty, even if it's a cost thing, it's a low cost point of entry. A lot of those.
And you would be assessing folks' experience with communication? Or,
A newsletter is a pretty significant investment of time and money. It's probably going to cost, if I'm guessing, $4,000 to put out one newsletter next year. Postage, design, mailing. We might be able to beat that down if we go that public-private partnership route, or we offload it entirely, but then it's going to look different.
right,
So if we're making that kind of investment in time, or we're asking for content from elected officials, boards, and staff, that's a pretty significant investment. So I would love to make sure after we did it that we get some feedback on how long did you keep
Is
it
it
in
worth
your
it?
house?
Yeah.
Did you read it?
Yeah.
Do you remember getting it? Was anything in it useful? What could we do to make it more useful? And I'm going to need some help too, crafting from you all, crafting those kinds of feedback surveys too, because I can fake my way through it and try and think through customer service feedback pieces, but that's not. I'm going to tell you, it's not a comfortable terrain for me, and it's something I'm going to be learning about it. So I'd like partnership with you all about how to do that.
I love good Likert scale.
The what scale?
I love good Likert scale, so I'm happy to.
Likert scale?
Yeah. Some open-ended. Okay, well, thank you for that. Do you want to move down? There is a question about Sabine property that we're not going to be able to ask here. So I'd like to end by 7:15 so we can move an executive session and ask that question about the lease.
Or would it make more sense to do that with council in executive session? Rather than ask Aaron to call it. I don't know.
I don't know. Let's see how much we can get through time-wise. Okay, go ahead.
Having to do with the lease that's proposed? Okay.
Yeah, there's a question, and I think it's probably
Why
executive
don't we
session.
talk in exec here
And see if it warrants a carryover.
we can do
Okay,
it again.
okay, perfect. All right, then Sean, I'll let you finish up, and I just have a couple information items.
Yeah, I'm gonna save the rest of my talking for council with budget.
Okay.
Please, thank you.
We had talked about, there are two citizens, Greg and I think her name's Eileen, who actually came and spoke about the resolution for Medicare. And we had talked about, okay, how do we adopt resolutions? We don't have a procedure for this. We asked Aaron, he said he had it. I know Barbara said the NCA is working at these things, but I continue to get emails from Greg about have we thought about and I just keep responding, I'm trying to find the process for this. So, Barbara, not to put you on the spot, but this is something the NCA is working on, right? You're working from Aaron's information from a few years ago, and then the NCA was independently going to take a stab at this.
Yes, but that was really more to tell people,
Yeah.
these are the kinds of meetings that borough government holds. This is what happens at them. Here's where you can find the minutes. Here's where you can find the borough code. We weren't anticipating doing anything that talked about how you can bring a resolution to council.
I'm sure that if council created a process, you could.
You would share.
We definitely would, but we aren't going to, we're not planning to make it up for you, sorry.
Okay.
We have to do it.
I think that I think FNA should think about this then.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a sticky wicket in some ways. It could really become, we could have a lot of requests for a lot of different things like this that sometimes, I don't know. I honestly don't know if it's typical to have an open, I don't know if it's typical for municipal government to have an open saying, bring any resolution you want to the table and we'll consider it, or if there's typically a preliminary vetting process or how that normally works. Do you have any insight or knowledge into
I don't, but what I was going to ask maybe to prompt a conversation would be like, how do you deal with this probably, without getting into the mechanics of whether it's a resolution, a motion, or it needs action of council, maybe it just needs to be addressed at administrative or public safety level. How do you deal with, I mean, people know who you are in the community. They'll come up to you and they'll talk to you about some special interest issue or issue they're having or issue they think is worth addressing at council. So I guess it's a conversation about, I'd like to hear about how things that you hear about kind of germinate and become conversations at this table and then turn into actions.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to have this conversation at the table because there is examples. I mean, over the last 18 months that we've been on here, what did we do? The resolution for Victoria, right? I mean, Jim just brought that to the table. And that's pretty, okay. We had the Ready 100 resolution.
It came through about number 2050, I think, really brought that to council's attention.
Absolutely. With a bunch of citizen advocacy, and that's how I think the Medicare for All came, is because folks said, okay, look, citizens care about this. They brought it to council and shepherded it through.
Well, what do you think? I mean, you created that flow chart. How does this like the flow chart? I mean, could you just say it's analogous? Basically, you need to find a council member maybe to sponsor it, and then it just goes into the flow chart. Yeah. I mean, that could be one process. Convince a council member to sponsor it. Or come to a committee meeting and try and talk the committee into sponsoring it, something like that, rather than coming to a full council meeting when it's not on the agenda and there really isn't a process through public comment to make that happen.
And do you encourage public comment as a venue to get some of those ideas into the conversations?
That was my response. So Greg emailed all of
Come
us.
to the meeting and talk to us?
That's what I said. I said, you know what? I encourage you to come to public comment. I will tell you the advice that I shared with him. I'll tell you that Ready 100 came from lots of grassroots efforts from our 2050 group. It wasn't one person. It was really that council had the sense from the community that this is something that they really cared about. So, I mean, they took that advice and ran with it. They started setting up petitions and tables and came to speak. And, has very gratefully asked, okay, now what is the process?
Right, but I mean, ultimately, you can have all the petitions you want and you can have people make all kinds of public comment, but there's no nexus between that and action. For action to happen, somebody has to make a motion and bring it to the table. So, I mean, my advice to somebody would be if you can find a council member who you think is open to your ideas, you're probably better off. In addition to, because it really, if it's just one person, it's not going to go anywhere either. Right. But if you've established sort of a movement, you've got energy behind it. I think they really want to hopefully have one person on council who's in a position to bring it to the table as a motion. I mean, that's the advice I would give. I don't know if that seems appropriate or not, but
it's good advice. I also think the public comment venue also gets you as an individual person out of the transaction with that other individual person, and you can say, hey, it sounds like a great idea, but I can't speak for everybody. Bring it to the group, and let's take the temperature of everyone.
The full chart has one council member, suppose they have an idea. They go to the president, right? And they say, is this something that do I remember your full? I don't want to misrepresent your full chart. The president says sort of a green light.
That you love, you're citing the flow chart.
And then it would go to an appropriate committee, right?
That was more of a project, but I do think, we could shuffle that idea through.
The president assigns it to a committee if the president says it fits in with our priorities,
there's sort of that phase of vetting the feasibility of any idea, and then it gets put in what I understood globally was then it gets put in a priority status.
It does, and I guess I saw this more as a procedure than an idea, and just being mindful of letting the community
But
know.
it does, even a resolution costs money, right, for the solicitor? Prepare?
Yes, I mean, I can tell you what they sent, what this group sent was there as a stock kind of resolution that
Okay.
Norristown just adopted.
Oh, okay.
But yes, I do think that's something to consider. And folks say that when you do bring a resolution, there is some cost to it.
I know John Walker likes to review it and format it to
Oh, sure.
our format.
Yeah,
It takes
yeah.
some time, not
Sure.
a lot.
Mhm.
He likes to
It's something.
he likes to have a consistent look and feel with it.
Right. But again, I just thought it's worth a conversation because, I mean, do we want a system where community groups are lobbying council folks? What's our overall philosophy on resolutions and the importance of them? How boldly do we want to stand? As
Well,
a
I mean, just
community?
as a, point of clarification, the Ready for 100 was recommended by the EAC,
Mhm.
So, I mean, I would say they start in one of the councils and commissions. And then come to the relevant committee, and then the committee takes it,
Okay. I'll follow up Kevin there on this. Okay. All right. And Joe,
But I mean, their frustration is they're bringing the issue that they don't know how to get in the queue. They don't know how to get, right? That's,
absolutely. My frustration is I'm not sure what to tell them what that process is.
Mhm.
Other than you should be lobbying support. It's more than just obviously an individual. But I think overarching a discussion from this council is, how bold do we want to do in the larger landscape of even our federal policies and
Mhm.
procedures?
that particular resolution, I would think they would want to come here to this committee and
FNA.
say, this is the resolution, or can ask you as the chair to put it on the agenda, right? Look at the resolution and decide if you want to recommend it to council. And if we don't, then I guess they could
Okay.
try different. I mean, there's different, I think that's the way it works, but you have to find somebody who has the capacity, the authority, the ability to put it on the table for vote to do it.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Again, I want to be mindful of time, but I think particularly with the Medicare for All, that's not a local issue that we're going to have any control over in Narberth, like Ready 100 is, right? So
Right.
that resolution changed for us our procurement practices and right. This I think is more of a larger, bold political statement, in the light of our current
This is like
climate.
the carbon tax resolution that Amy
Yes.
Feldman has brought before council, has sort of successfully lobbied to have passed.
Yes,
Mhm.
which is why I guess the larger conversation for us all is
Send
that
it to
the
Amy,
bold
say
is
Amy
the
does.
Yeah, right?
Mhm.
Let's not belabor this. I will ask for that. Okay, see, I'm like skipping all around here. The conflict of interest policies, Michelle, you were going to take a stab at this and
Yeah.
update.
So what actually happened is it morphed into something much larger, because I started looking at where, I talked to Aaron about it, and I talked to John and to Darren, and the appropriate place would be to put it in the council rules as something non-binding, right, because we can't exceed legal conflicts of resolutions, but we can have non-binding tone-setting expectations that are agreed to, and that's sort of belongs in the rules and the manual of rules and procedures of council. But when I started to look at that manual, the entire thing's a new curriculum updating, and so did Aaron. And so that's where that is now. So I have a draft of, I wound up just scanning it and notes here because I don't copy it. And so doing like a lot of editing, I meet with Aaron, and he's gonna do his thing, and I guess then it would just come. Maybe after he's taken a look at it, then we can bring it to the November meeting. I think we should have time to meet before then, and we can look at that conflicts part. The rest of it is all just things that are out of date or inconsistent or superfluous or a variety of things. All the code references are wrong, they're out of date, everything. So it's just a variety of things like that. So maybe we'll fix it all at once, or one shot.
Surprised if it was not.
Well, because
Yeah,
they changed Pennsylvania code.
right. So everything needs to be updated. Okay, thank you. Anything on the Isley pilot?
Ickley.
Isley pilot?
Ickley.
Going forward,
Okay.
yeah.
How many days is Nick here? Or is he? Nick is the name of the,
Nick Taraski from Temple, he's a geography student, he does not do the work from here, we
Okay.
have met,
Got it.
we do check in.
yeah, he wouldn't know what to do.
He's entering we gave him a bunch of contacts the last time he was here, so he's searching and prodding those contacts. You can go onto DVRPC's website and find greenhouse gas emissions allocated to the local level with a somewhat recent assessment date. So you start wrapping your head around some of the concepts that are coming out of there. You know, over about half of our emissions are coming from the residential sector, and with only a quarter coming from
So exciting.
quarter coming from. Oh, I turned the ringer off. I always do that with me. Didn't miss nothing. I guess. Yeah. Never say never.
Oh, I'm gonna get my ringer turned off tonight for sure, not like that last
It's not
night.
that fun, that's like.
Where was I? Sorry.
Quarter of emissions from the borough?
Quarter of emissions
Municipal.
are from the transportation sector. So, and the rest of the emissions come from commercial, industrial, and a mix of minor sectors in the ICLEI portfolio. I just mentioned that to say that half of our emissions are coming from people's
Right.
homes.
Yeah.
So, and that's private land, and getting a culture of, and it's hard to say. What's a new house in Narberth? Big, right? So you can make it pretty energy efficient, but big is big,
Yeah.
and how much energy is going out the windows and the roofs and through your insulation. These are problems. But I think the next step in this assessment is trying to figure out what influence do we have as a government to actually make some changes, and what influence do we have to sort of example set, and where are the best places to apply that pressure.
Do you have an upcoming deadline in that program? Or, I thought I heard a November deadline.
It's semester-based. I don't know exactly. I would assume by December it would all be done.
So they're trying to close out the baseline data collection in the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we'll be in a position to move into the climate action plan.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I need to loop back to John about the MOU was the wrong language, the user agreements for borough properties, and I have to say, this weekend with the scavenger hunt, we're trying to figure out access to the electricity, and it was like, who's on first? It was really laughable. And it really underscored the need to having clear guidelines on how to access borough property, who gets to access borough property, and why. So I'm eager to hear from John on that. If there's nothing else for a public meeting, maybe we can move into executive session and ask that one least specific question?
Yeah.
Sean, do you have anything?
No.
Okay.
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 All right, so on council's agenda this evening is resolution 2019-26. This resolution is about the LED streetlight project that we've been involved with the past several months. This resolution is not approving any particular light colors, all those sorts of things. This resolution is to say, yes, council wants to go forward with construction, wants to go forward with this project. There are still details to be ironed out with the funding, but this does give the borough office the permission to negotiate with the county for financing. All of those specifics will still be ironed out with Mike Fuller, who presented 2 weeks ago. So I just wanted to, reiterate that you're not voting on any specific light color, anything like that tonight. Those are specifics that are still need to be defined. What I would like from council this evening is guidance on which direction you'd like to go, whether you want it soup to nuts, all of the lights, everything that the borough owns, meaning the Cobra heads, which we don't own yet, the downtown decorative lights, and all of the other exterior lights, or not. And also the other decision point is whether we want the fancy schmancy network controls for all of the lights. I believe staff recommendation is we're recommending against having the network controls. Just we've been thinking about it, obsessing about it, and would rather have a more simple solution and would not, I don't know, it just seems like too big of an investment for something that hasn't been widely adopted. Right, and it hasn't been widely adopted in any of the phase first year communities as well as this year. There's only been one community that's done it. And they're going with a different system. So our staff recommendation is to do all lights and to not do any network controlling.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a scenario where you would need to, from the office, suddenly shut down a street light. And other than a super cool gadget,
So from a techie kind of sort,
totally
it sounds
fine.
cool.
Sure, yeah.
And for $50,000, we can
I
get
just don't think it's been proven well
No,
enough
you
yet.
know, and you don't know how long you're gonna get, how
Right.
many bishops you're really
Right.
gonna get out of that.
Yeah.
Matt had such a great point on the phone with me yesterday about spending a lot of money on tech is kind of like, it's
Yeah.
kind of like buying a new car, like
Yeah.
a really expensive new car. The minute you drive it off
Yes.
the lot,
Oh, sure, it's
it
antiquated.
depreciates on the way home.
Yeah.
Right.
Tax usefulness goes
Yeah.
down pretty quickly, so
Right.
to pay that much up front seems like
I
Yeah.
have no idea how long.
For a cool gadget,
Totally agree.
our recommendation is no.
And I agree with
You would recommend the manual control or no?
No controls.
No control.
Oh, no, controls?
No.
Really?
So my only concern there is the light, like I guess it was Ira's point, the intensity.
Mhm.
I really don't, my preference is for it to come way down so that it's not disrupting sleep and not disrupting.
So our discussions with Mike Fuller is that his approach is to take, his first response is to wait a couple weeks to adjust. It will be different, right? And then work on a case-by-case basis, and his recommendation is to use physical, actually barriers on the lights,
Mhm.
and they're really cost-effective, like $20 a piece, where they can put shrouding on it to direct the light. So those sorts of things. His recommendation would be to use the more manual
Mhm.
structures on the
Manual
lights.
control is basically, it's like a dial or something, right?
On
Up
every
in the
single-
light, on every single light that you can reduce the intensity of the light.
Mhm. Like a dimmer
Is that
switch.
an entirely different light unit, or is that something that could be added into a light after the fact?
I believe it's something that's added onto the fixture, and I don't know if it's up in the light or if it's pole mounted. I don't know
So
that.
in theory, it's something that you could selectively, do we know, if you could selectively add manual controls later at a
Well,
later
his
date,
response, his recommendation is to do it for all of the pole mounted, all of the overheads. So it wouldn't be for the downtown decorative lights. It
Right.
wouldn't be for all the other ones, just the overheads. He says it would be the best thing to do is to do it all or none, just from the cost buying standpoint and from a project management standpoint. It'd be difficult.
Yeah,
You don't want to, from an expectation from the public, you don't want to say, well, why didn't that light do it? And that one
right,
did it.
yeah,
So, again, our recommendation is to, first of all, we don't own our streetlights now, and so it's going to be a big change for us. There is a maintenance element to this where we will have to hire a maintenance provider, and these sorts of issues will then be handled through that direct communication with the maintenance provider, for which we don't have that mechanism now. It's a challenge. As I've been thinking it through, I would prefer no controls, and Mike Fuller will help us identify the appropriate maintenance provider, and these issues can then be controlled through me.
Can you refresh my memory what the cost of the manual control, the big one?
We didn't-
I don't remember.
So we
I have my
didn't get
spreadsheet.
a price quote for the manual? I can ask,
Oh,
no,
it's a
it was,
presentation. Okay,
yeah, it was
sorry.
only none or the network control. I can ask him to do manual.
No, I thought he had. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm probably wrong, but I could
So it was just straight up and then network controls. I haven't seen the manual fixture controls. It will probably be close, probably in between network and this one.
So 20,000.
It's still going to be a significant investment. I'm thinking from a management standpoint. I think, again, staff's recommendation is to not have that level of I don't want to be in the light business. I
Mhm.
don't want the expectation for us to be able to go up and get Ed Harmon up on a ladder to
Right.
start adjusting lights.
Right, I know, that
I
does
don't
sound.
think that's good, and I would prefer to lean on the maintenance provider, for which we will secure.
Would
As
the
part of
maintenance provider be able to do it?
I think they can do it without those manual controls. I'll double back and double verify that with Mike Fuller.
They can put like blinders on it.
Correct.
Right, right.
To dim the light.
But can they also, I think he was talking about different light levels of intensity.
So that is another decision.
Can we recommend, if we all agree, on the less intense
So
light
that is a
at the
decision that I will
baseline?
need council to act on. His recommendations are one of
Tonight?
two, 3,000 or 4,000. No, you don't have to do it tonight, but eventually.
Okay.
I need, that's a decision point that I need council. Also, downtown, he said he will be doing, in the next week or two, we'll be able to do the show and tell for the two different wattages,
Oh, good.
whatever they're calling it, the colors for the downtown fixtures.
Okay.
So once those are installed, put like a little sign on it or something and identify which one is which. From lighting standards, he's only recommending one or two, 3,000 or 4,000.
For residential streets, not
Yeah.
downtown.
Correct. Yep, and that has to do with color and directioning and those sorts of things. So we need to make sure we're at light standards. Having
Like
now,
standards 3,000 or 4,000, so I don't know. What are they?
this is the colors,
Yeah, 3,000 or
right?
4,000.
3,000 or 4,000.
Which would be the colors.
Color.
Okay,
Yep.
got it.
But that's a decision point. He asked that you go to, I think, Haverford or Radnor have done this and just start driving through and look at the different colors. There's a 4,000 LED light in front of my house. I would recommend the 3,000.
Yeah,
Just living in front of it.
right.
It is different. It's a different light.
It is a different light.
Yeah,
But if you look at the cost savings and the carbon emissions,
Yeah, it's worth it.
Absolutely.
And I would say, I know, I do want to ask this question in executive session, but I would say, I think it's almost going to take 1 to 2 weeks for people to get used to a switch into LED. I think we'll have.
His point was it will take time.
It's going to take
Mhm.
some time.
Yep. And he's been doing this for quite a long time and he knows the ins and outs and he's heard everything. So, I'm really relying on him and his recommendations were to, give it some time and then document, and if it's recurring, have him come out and he'll take a look at shrouding that can be installed on particular lights.
And I think avoiding the situation where neighbors can call and say, wait, I want mine higher, I want mine lower, so the
Mhm.
office is not expected, or
Yeah, that
anyone
would
is
be
expected to
difficult to
customize the light out of people's houses.
Yep. Agreed. And that's where we were at also.
Okay.
So that's it. So tonight, sorry, 10 minutes,
No, it's
2
all
minutes.
good.
Tonight, you're just hopefully moving that we
Yeah.
can approve this so we can then get the ball
Mhm.
rolling and get specifics for what the costs.
Thank you.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Okay, now we.
All right.